episode number 3.
There we go.
Alrighty. Okay. Oh, wait, I should probably start the music, huh?
Yep.
We are all women and Jessie ran show. Jessie as our co.
Alrighty, y'all.
Okay.
And we're on.
Welcome to the Ganja Yoga LA podcast, where our purpose is to spread valuable information and wisdom around conscious cannabis use recreationally, medicinally, and spiritually.
And to create meaningful experiences.
So that we have a healthy connection with ourselves and our environments.
And with that, create a shift in perspective into universal consciousness and love.
This podcast is intended for an audience of 21 and up and for entertainment purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the topics discussed.
What up, Ganja Yogis? This is Marisa Anita Reyes Balzania.
Tia Marie Brown.
And Rosalina Lourdes Rosales.
And
We
we
are
are
so
so
ready
ready
to
to
love
love
and
and
light
light
it
it up.
Here we go.
Yes, we're so excited to jump into today's conversation. Continuing the conversation on our book, Cannabis and Spirituality. And we'll be discussing the first 3 chapters. Last week we talked about the introduction, all the special terms related to the topic of cannabis. So, where do we start?
Yeah.
Start with last night.
Yes.
Because it
for
was
sure.
somebody's birthday.
Yes.
And that somebody just happens to be here in this room.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we had the honor of celebrating Rosalina Lourdes' birthday last night. And not only did we celebrate her birthday, but she was also our guest healer. And it was so beautiful because she's been our guest healer before, where she offered some yoga from the program that she's starting, the Feeling Body, the Thinking Mind. And last night was special to see how her work is evolving, because it was a beautiful dance practice that was so just yummy. So yummy.
So amazing, so everything. I
Thank
felt
you.
like a little Rosie. I was like, ooh, is this what Rosalina feels like when she's dancing? I feel fancy. That's
Yeah.
so nice.
So, just I'm not sure if you've said it correctly, but it's the thinking body, the feeling mind. But nonetheless, it's cool. You know, you could play with it. You know, the feeling mind, the thinking body, the vice versa. The point being that it is definitely a technique that really allows you to really tap into, you know, the flow within you and really feel your body and each body part as a whole. And it was truly an honor to be able to share that with the group last night. So amazing. So honored again to just be able to share the love, share the light, share the gifts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for catching that, because something I realize is something that y'all should know, even though this is a Ganja Yoga LA podcast, we actually don't smoke for this podcast, although we're thinking it would be kind of cool to
We are.
experiment.
I agree. It would be so cool.
And really that's because the intention is it's about creating a healthy relationship with cannabis, which is being aware of how much we're partaking with the medicine and how important it is to be able to take fasts in between, because there is a lot of benefit to just that in-between space. That's what yoga is all about, is space, creating space in our body, creating space with our breath, and it's also creating space within the relationship with cannabis.
Indeed. So somebody is currently still on a break, even on her birthday.
Yeah.
What?
Still on the break. I'm not smoking. Haven't been smoking for a couple weeks now, and it feels good. It feels good to just be able to take a break. Like I said, previously in the second episode of our podcast that, yeah, I just felt the need to take a little break, and it's, definitely the energy level within my body is different, in my mind space, in my head space, and it feels good. So again, just coming back to thinking about the duality, right? Duality of knowing how my mind space, head space is when I do smoke and when I don't. What it is to be really just on a path of sobriety for a bit, and it's interesting. You get to again know yourself in both spaces, and I think that ultimately it's important to do. Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Can I share something really exciting that I did today?
Yeah.
So I just drove to the west side to go visit Sari Starr, who goes by the Cannabis Priestess, and she has a line called Celestial Smokes. So they're pre-rolled joints, but they're CBD joints. So it doesn't necessarily have the THC, so it has a very grounding, balancing experience, rather than sometimes someone wants to smoke something and they don't necessarily want to get high, so it's really nice for that. And she has 3 different flavors. So one of them, and I love that they're all connected to spirit animals, because one of them's a wolf, another one's the owl, and the third one is the jaguar.
That is so cute.
So
did you get the wolf and then...
not yet, but I plan on it.
Yeah.
Give Mikael the jaguar.
Yeah, and we plan on having her come to be one of the guest healers on April 1st. So I'm really excited to be in conversation with her, because one of the things we're talking about, the beauty of our Wednesday night rituals, is the community and being able to collaborate, because I feel like that is such a huge essence of that feminine energy. Right? If you think about that feminine energy, it's about being in relationship with other people, and so yeah, that was fun. I'm excited to have her.
Yay! I'm excited to meet her and see, how everything goes with her, and learn more about her celestial smokes. There are some times where I'm at Ganja Yoga, wish I didn't want to use the cannabis, and it would be nice to have a CBD one, because I think I was doing it when I was on my fast a couple months ago. I was like, it would be nice to smoke something, but having that would be awesome. The CBD, that would be awesome.
Yeah. And something to just add, whether you're listening to us on Spotify or Anchor, knowing that we actually, all 3 of us, are going on live on Instagram. So if at any point anyone wants to jump on to comment or ask a question or send us your love, I see Giselle, Spiral Circle Healing.
Giselle!
Hi!
We love you!
For all those tuning in, thank you. We are very grateful.
Yeah. So shall we jump into chapter numero
uno?
I would like to say the outline first, and then we could do the chapters, so that we have an idea of how everything is going to go today. So we're going to be talking about the weekly chapters, and next week we're going to be doing chapters 4 through 6. This week we're going to be chapters 1 through 3, and because there's 3 of us, each one of us got a chapter that we can talk about fully in depth, and we're all going to be able to add to it, whatever we got to it. And we're going to go ahead and start with chapter 1, Who Is She, with Rosalina.
Yeah, so chapter 1 is titled, Who Is She? And it says, the personification of cannabis in cultural and individual experience. So I was telling Marisa earlier that there's just so much great information in each chapter, and it'll take a long time to cover everything, but I did my best to just select a few pieces from the chapter that really resonated with me. And to begin with, I would like to start with this part of how Stephen, is it Stephen? Yeah,
Stephen Gray.
Stephen Gray, thank you. He talks about how our perception, right? So here in the sentence that I'm looking at, in this very moment, he mentions how there is a way of perceiving the world in which everything is alive and conscious. All species of plants, animals, fungi, and even microorganisms are sentient to some extent. We know that from biology. So just coming into awareness of how everything, you know, that we are able to experience, as far as, you know, again, animals, plants, right now talking about specifically cannabis, how there's a form of, it's an entity, it has a form of consciousness, right? It has, it's alive, it's aware. And he mentions how they communicate with us. You know, they communicate with us, and a lot of the times I feel like we either are unconscious of that, or just we know it, but again, we might dismiss it on a daily basis. But nonetheless, coming back to acknowledging that, yeah, you know, it's alive and it communicates with us. And he mentions how, you know, whether it's through the smell, right? So the cannabis, the plant medicine itself has has a smell. So again, taking a moment to acknowledge that, wow, okay, this is the certain smell that it has, and that's a form of communication already, you know, that tapping into the sense of smell and knowing that, oh wow, you know, this is what it is, this is how it smells. And then again, when you start to smoke, or maybe, you know, in a form of, you know, an edible, you know, you are, again, it's communicating with you some way, somehow, right? You're smoking it, you know, and or again through an edible, and being very mindful that it's a relationship. Ultimately, you are building a form of relationship with it, right? And when you start thinking about how you're personifying that, you know, personifying the plant, really, you start to question, okay, you know, I feel like ultimately thinking about why are you even taking the plant medicine? Why are you either smoking it or having it in an edible, right? Whether it is that you want to experience a form of connection in that very moment, or get into your creative zone, or maybe in a form of healing, whatever that may be for you. But again, knowing that you have a relationship with it, right? So we have all kinds of relationships, whether it's with people or family, friends, and even food, you know, everything that we engage with, it's a form of relationship, and we have to be very mindful of that. So again, coming back to the process of personification and how that occurs, you know, you start, you know, it's almost as if, you know, you're having a conversation with the plant, right? And it's, you know, who is she? Like, who is she? Really knowing and tapping into who and what she does, right? So knowing that she's a plant, that Mother Earth, you know, allows us to have this relationship with her, and it's up to us to make that choice of whether or not how we want to engage with it. It's a choice if we want to, and how are we going to do that, right? So it's recognizing that, you know, if you start seeing it from a perspective of, you know, she can be an ally. She can be an ally, and by that, you know, she has healing benefits, right? So if you start thinking of her in that way of like, you know what, I want to build a healthy relationship with her, then it will occur. It will occur. And if that's your choice, then you can explore with it and with her. Yeah, you see, I keep talking about personification. Even in my own, you know, my own thought processes, it's like, okay, you know, like she, really honoring her, coming back to that and knowing that she's an entity and she has a consciousness, and she does offer beautiful healing benefits. And when we think about how we build relationships, you know, it's again asking questions like, who is she? What is she? You know, why am I choosing to engage with her? What do I want? You know, what are you seeking? So these are profound questions that I feel are important for us to ask when we start to really connect with her energy, and knowing that, again, trusting that whatever arises, whatever questions that you may have, she can help. She can help through that process, and she's very gentle, right? She has a form of communicating with us in a very gentle way, which is beautiful, right? Because in my perspective, in my own relationship with her, it's definitely evolved so much. It's evolved tremendously, and she's a teacher. She's a teacher, and Stephen talks about how she's here to teach us something and here to help us and to take care of us. And I truly do believe that, because once you give yourself the opportunity to explore with her, it's like, okay, really reflecting on like, how did she make me feel in that one moment, or what did I experience? And you can have these realizations, and again, just ultimately knowing that it's beautiful to allow yourself to just experience whatever may arise. And sometimes, some certain emotions might come up that might not be so pleasant, or thoughts that might not be so pleasant, and that's okay. But knowing that you can work through it, and eventually there's a form and way of transmuting and shifting that perspective, and knowing that, okay, this is coming up for a reason, trusting that that's coming up for a reason, and knowing that, ultimately, whatever is present at that very moment with you, it's part of you. It's, what's inside, what's in your heart space, it's what's currently in your mind space. And I feel like it's vital for us as human beings who have the ability to be self-aware, to have this form of consciousness, to give ourselves that time to reflect, and to just try to find some clarity. I feel like ultimately within that, and maybe in that very moment clarity won't occur, but I feel like ultimately, giving yourself time, and maybe in a few days or so that pass by, something will arise, and you'll be like, wait, I thought about that when I was smoking, and now it's showing up again, and now it's more clear. And just really trusting your relationship with her, and that frame of mind, it shifts every day, and knowing that ultimately it's I feel like what you make of it. If you want to have a beautiful experience with her, you will. And trusting that wholeheartedly, and being again mindful of it, and again taking care of your body. Knowing that, again, setting and set, knowing how you're going into it, right? If you're feeling a sense of sadness or a sense of happiness, being aware of these emotions, it's part of our human nature. It's beautiful, it's all beautiful, divine, really, and exploring that, if that's what you want to do. So again, relationship with her, and knowing that it's part of your human experience, really, just knowing that whatever occurs, whatever you learn from it, is really just divine, and it will change. It will change. And once I feel like ultimately for me, it's in my own experience, it's my relationship with her has changed so much, and I've come to honor her. And when we come from a perspective of just respecting her, honoring her, and trusting her, she will trust you, she will honor you, and she will help you. So they are so complex and beautiful, really, I think. And
Can I add a lot of what you're saying right now? The term that keeps coming up is like, make it sacred. And it's so cool because last week we were talking about the song Caminar en Belleza, Caminar en Paz, and the lyrics of this song is like honoring the plants, honoring the animals. So it's really cool to see the tie-ins to the Moon Dance song,
right?
And the messages that all these different writers have to offer.
Exactly, exactly. And the one thing I would like to add to this chapter is Stephen Gray edited the book, but this specific chapter is based off of Kathleen Harrison's experience.
Yes.
Kathleen Harrison is a director and co-founder of Botanical Dimensions, whose mission is to collect, protect, propagate, and understand plants of ethnomedical significance and their lore. So I really thought it was beautiful being able to read from her perspective how we can have those type of connections with plants, not just in cannabis, but you guys ever go outside and somebody just mowed the lawn and you're like, oh, sweet smell of grass? Mm-hmm. That's grass's warning system to the other grass that something's going on. It smells really good to us, but that's their warning signals they're sending to the other plants. So it's, right? Exactly. They communicate the same way that we communicate with each other. They send out different signals, different scents, and I felt very connected to this. This was one of my favorite chapters. Like, when I first started listening to the book, because I listened to it on Audible. When I first started listening to it, I fell in love with it in this first chapter, and I got myself a bed for cannabis. I got her an altar. I was like, I'm going to take care of you, girl. You on my side today.
That is
So it always felt amazing. And being able to talk to the different plants, not just cannabis, but every plant, and building that relationship with more than just plants, but the world, the animals that we have, everything. So it was absolutely wonderful reading this chapter, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on it. It was beautiful hearing you.
Chapter 2?
Chapter 2? You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So chapter 2 is a little bit about my other favorite topic of discussion, religions. I am not a big religious person, but I do love understanding where everybody's perspective is. And so chapter 2 is an essay from Chris Bennett. I think I'm saying his name right. I might be saying it wrong. But it's Venerable Traditions, which is a brief history of the ritual and religious use of cannabis. So in this, Chris Bennett, a little background on him. He wrote a few books. He's a recognized scholar on the use of cannabis in ritual and magic. And he wrote 2 books, Green Gold, the Tree of Life, Marijuana and Magic and Religion, which I'm totally about to get on Amazon, Cannabis and the Soma Solution. So he also owns a popular business, retail business that educates people about and sells a variety of plants with shamanic and healing uses. So he's very knowledgeable on how plants and medicine is used in traditional uses like religion and spirituality. So it's very interesting. The 5 religions that he went over in his essay were Taoism, Zoroastrianism. See, I wrote the pronunciation down. Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism. We'll go over that. Hinduism, and can you believe this one? Sikhism.
Right?
Sikhism. Right?
And the reason why that's so surprising is because, Kundalini Yoga, which was brought to the U.S. by Yogi Bhajan, who a lot of Sikhs have adopted Kundalini Yoga, and it's in their belief system that they should not incorporate any kind of substance with yoga because you don't need any substances to achieve that state of elevation.
Exactly. And they're completely correct. You don't need it, but how much more fun is it when you do, when you have an ally like cannabis? But that's neither here nor there. But we're going to talk about how they used it in the past. Buddhism, and as well as Judaism. So those are the 5, I think I counted that right. Those are the 5 religions he touches base on. I'm just going to share a little bit from each one, not too much. But in Taoism, they're saying that the Chinese were among the first people to discover the medicinal and magical properties of the plant. So with the history of use in these cases, along with its utility as food, fiber, and a source of oil, it's used for lighting and paints going back thousands of years. So we've co-evolved with cannabis for forever. Like way back. It was not just smoking, but it was literally using it to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, to make things a little easier for us. So I thought that was very beautiful. And it was also noted that the Chinese shamans would show their awareness of the cannabis's medical powers symbolically by carving serpents remember from our last book, by carving serpents into a stalk of hemp and using it as a magic wand and healing ceremonies. Our last book that we read was Becoming Supernatural, and the front cover of that book is the staff that's on the medical transporters with the two snakes going through. The serpents. So it's all interconnected, and there's something so magical about the healing abilities of cannabis. And on my personal page on Facebook, I've been reposting different articles about how they're finding that cannabis is good to use with Alzheimer's. It's good to use with, I think they said other things. I don't remember exactly. But I'm going to post them to the Ganja Yoga.la Facebook page so everybody has access to those, to review those, because I think it's wonderful magic when we're able to know the benefits of the healing plant and how we can use them as they were used in the past in healing ceremonies as they used them in Taoism. So I thought that was really, really cool. So, also, as you were mentioning earlier, building a relationship, what they're saying here is legendary Emperor Shinung. Oh, this is on page 41, by the way, if you guys wanted to check it out. Legendary Emperor Shinung, if I'm saying that right, stated of cannabis that beyond medical use, if taken over long term, it makes one communicate with spirits and lightens one's body. I thought that was fascinating because when I first started using cannabis, the one thing that I would see a lot were spirits. I was already into mediumship and psychic things. That's one of my passions. And so it was so much clearer to see when I was under the love of cannabis. So it was fun reading about that and the shamans and how they used it in Taoism. So there's a long history with Asia and Taoism and using cannabis in their healing ceremonies. And when we go to, let's try this again, Zoroastrianism. There it is, Zoroastrianism. This was a, let me see, sorry. It refers to a substance variously known as Banga. This is where it relates to all the other religions that are coming up. There's this Indian term called bang, if I'm saying that right. If not, I do apologize. But it's still used for cannabis, and it can refer to cannabis as a beverage. So the founder of Zoroastrianism, which is Zoroaster, he was a monotheistic reformer of the polytheistic Mazdian religion, akin to the portrayal of Moses in the Hebrew scriptures. So he started using cannabis and used it in the initiation of certain elite members of the religion to attain that mystical visions that did deeply influence their cosmology. Look at me, I'm stuttering. You guys make me nervous. So, bang is a cannabis beverage, and they used it with the higher elite people of that society to get connected. And that same term is used in Hinduism. And the Vedic use of soma, which is related to bang, and the Vedic religion itself fell to the wayside in India through the influences and development of Buddhism and Buddhist reformers. But however, before that, branches of soma, which is also bang, and the beating of it with rocks are comparable to later preparation of bang. So the same way they describe soma is the same way they describe bang. So it's what is noted in here by Chris Bennett is that it is safe to conclude that soma is cannabis sativa. So they've used it a lot in Hinduism, and this is where Shiva, who we like to say our mantra to. What's the mantra?
Om Namah Shivaya, Om Shakti Ma.
So Shiva, the great spirit that living in bang passes into the drinker, sings of bang as the clearer of ignorance and the giver of knowledge. So in Hinduism, it's believed that when you ingest bang, you're ingesting Shiva. You're ingesting that magical power of Shiva, and I thought that was absolutely beautiful ever since learning about Shiva through what you learned through the Salt and Ganja yoga. And I'm like, ooh, I understand it now a little bit.
Yeah, and Shiva is also known as the Lord of Yoga.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So Lord of Cannabis and Lord of Yoga. I'm like, hello.
Why haven't we been doing this before?
Well, that's the thing. People have been doing it before. And it's interesting how there's, you know, in certain philosophies, you know, everyone's going to have their own belief system. But there is a practice out there where people did unite these two practices.
That's so beautiful. And also, moving it into Buddhism, there's what they're saying here is there are no ancient references to Buddha's use of the popular intoxicants of his culture, but I mean he was a prince, right? Mm-hmm. He would have access to that type of soma or bang. So that's what it's stating here by Mr. Bennett, is that it's probably more than sure that he did partake in something like that. Of course, he's a prince, who wouldn't back then. So they're talking about where in Buddhist tantric texts, the plants are employed to attain health, wealth, wisdom, and supernatural powers such as seeing underground and flying. Personally, in my own personal ventures of cannabis, I went to China, but I was still in the backseat of my car. But I was in China, I swear. I was in China. I don't know how I got there, but I was there. So I can totally speak to the Buddhists saying that they were employed to attain health. And that goes back to the articles about how cannabis can be used in health ceremonies. Sikhism, they don't particularly smoke. They do not smoke anything, Sikhs, but back in the day before it was banned, they did use bhang as a beverage, and it was consumed to heighten their experiences. And this is where some people were excommunicated because of their belief with cannabis and their continual use. The Sikhs would excommunicate them because they didn't want that. They believed exactly what you were saying earlier about it. So there's a lot of information. I thought it was so cool about it because apparently in 2001, the Sikh clergy instituted a prohibition of cannabis products as part of their campaign against drug addiction. So in the Tribune, they recorded that Baba Santa Singh pointed out that the consumption of bhang among the Ningangs, I don't know if I'm saying that right, was not a new phenomenon. He said it had been going on ever since the Ningangs came into existence and fought battles against Mughal and Afghan invaders. The thing that was cool about this is that the Sikhs mainly used it in their military to help their militarists get connected, and they would win the battles that they were clearly outnumbered for because of their connection and their use with the plant, which I thought was pretty cool, because it's like, imagine back in the day, you're in the forest and you're smoking, the trees are going to tell you where to go and how to do it and help you if that's your mission. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's so cool, because it ties into what Rosalina was talking about, right? And like being in relationship with the plant and how it's using, how they're working with it to support them in their mission.
Exactly. Yeah. And Jessie was wanting some resin from a tree, and we went to a garden and we couldn't find any. So I asked, I said, "Can somebody give us some resin? Who got resin here?" I got an image of the bird in my mind, and I was like, a bird, and then all of a sudden this bird landed and started hopping. And I was like, why does it follow the bird? So I followed the bird to this tree, and it was like one of the oldest trees that was in the park. And I was like, and then I saw it was saying, like, this is where you're going to find the resin, the most resin. And I looked, and the tree had so much resin at the bottom. No other tree had it, but this one tree had it. And I was like, oh. I said, Jesse, there's the resin. And he came, and he's like, ooh, that is a lot. And so we started picking it up, and I was like, he's going to want something in exchange, the tree itself. And so I was like, oh, God, what is he going to want? And then I felt my hair get stuck in the branches. And I was like, oh, he wants my hair. And I was like, no. I was like, okay. And then my hair got like stuck on the branches as an offering to have some of his resin. The tree wasn't the happiest tree because we all have personalities, but he was a hoarder of resin. And so he was like that old grandpa tree. that you
So cute.
Yeah. And so I thought it's so beautiful that, you know, our communication relationship with plants can be tuned in with cannabis as well. I wasn't on cannabis then, but I just thought it was a funny story. And then the final religion that he mentions here is Judaism. And the one thing I thought was interesting is this. You guys know the story of Moses and the burning bush.
Mm-hmm.
What was he burning?
Yeah.
Oh!
Yeah.
I remember this
What
part.
was he burning?
Good question.
Mm-hmm. Here he says, claims that on page 52, claims that the biblical story of the Lord's appearance before Moses from within a burning bush is actually a metaphor for cannabis inebriation have occasionally been parodied. Yeah. I thought that was cool because I've seen that little cartoon. I'm like, burning bush, alright. Burning bush. So that's about it. Chapter 2, it talks a little bit more in depth about cannabis and how on page 57, the conclusion, he says here, when the people have achieved access to the divine via natural plants, the whole profession of priesthood may be jeopardized, and religious traditions of the past usurped by new revelations. Thanks, Giselle. But it's in this book, Giselle. You're on the right page there.
Wait, what page is it?
It's page 57, and her idea of the things she shared with us is right in line with like the world. So cannabis's reappearance at this time offers us the opportunity for a great renovation of religious thought and a connectivity of the world's religions and medicine, and recognizing cannabis as the holy sacrament it once was and can be again, and I'm going to say it is again because we're doing it, and it only takes one. Mm-hmm. So if we continue and other people continue, it is going to be that holy sacrament that it always has been. And it says, in this natural substance, perhaps we can find the true sacrament of the natural perennial religion that is at the root of so many traditions. And one of my major beliefs about religion is that it's all saying the same thing in different ways, with different rules, because everybody has different experiences. But yeah.
Wow.
That's chapter 2.
So
And I encourage all listeners to check out the book and read up on it themselves and do some research, because it's really great information here about how cannabis has shown up in our past and how it's going to be used in our present, and so on and so forth. I am complete.
something you had said about cannabis being used in all these different religions and cultures and even countries. She is international. Like, international. She's all over the place. And it's cool because how we tie it all back in, I'm always going to find a way to bring it back to the moon dance, La Danza de la Luna, which is, this is a ceremony where there are women from all over the world who come together with this intention of prayer. And that's what, and I feel like it's a really great time to, you know, we're exploring all this mental realm, and to remember to bring our awareness from our headspace down into our belly. And we do that with the breathing, and the breathing being so tied into the singing. And that was one of the things I was talking to about Sari Star today, the cannabis priestess, is how so much of ceremonies, so much of the power comes from the music. Yes, the medicine is amazing and potent, and when it's in combination with the songs, it just takes it next level.
So true.
So y'all ready to take it to the next level?
Yeah.
So I've got Tia's beautiful buffalo drum here. And last week we came up in conversation. We were like, todos somos familia. And we're like, oh yeah, that's a moon dance song. We'll sing it for you next week. So now that next week is here,
We are in next week.
figured we're going to share this song. And the song Caminar en, can you see that real quick? Caminar en belleza. It's like walk in beauty, walk in peace. We are all family. Todo es sagrado, plantas y animales. Everything is sacred. Plants and animals. The mountains, the jungles, the seas, all of our family, and it is all sacred. So, I'll go ahead and take a little music break.
Yeah, so much information. Integration.
Giselle's fire circles. She has her new moon and full moon fire circles, and that was the first time I was introduced to the moon dance songs. And this was a song that we would share at the end to close. And it's just a really beautiful way of unifying our voices and reminding us that everything is sacred.
Qué bonito.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to chapter 3, número 3. And I really love this chapter because this is about marijuana and the body-mind, which is right up my alley. Because, you know, Michael, my partner, and I, we have Purple Lotus Massage and Wellness, our wellness home in Highland Park. And our purpose of creating this space is to really help people connect to their bodies and understand what the deeper underlying health topics they're experiencing. You know, so if they're experiencing, you know, aches and pains in their body, there's so many deeper connections to the emotions. And so this is a really awesome chapter. And Joan Bello, again, she's a phenomenal author who she's written the books called The Benefits of Marijuana, and it's a forthcoming trilogy. And then there's three other books: The Yoga of Marijuana, The Tantra of Marijuana, and Marijuana and Yoga Practice.
That book sounds dope.
All of them, right?
Yeah,
The trilogy. True word. So just to give you a little background on who this woman is, she's one of, and this is on chapter 3, page 59. She's one of our leading contemporary proponents for the physical, psychological, and spiritual benefits of the cannabis plant. And I love, she's got a master's degree in Eastern Studies and Psychology with clinical experience as a substance abuse counselor and more than 35 years of close association with and study of marijuana. So she's the director of the National Class Action for Therapeutic Cannabis and has interviewed more than 500 patients. So this woman has some pretty phenomenal experience. So I love the quote that they start off with. It comes from The Yoga of Herbs by Vasant Lad. And he says, plants transmit the vital emotional impulses, the life force that is hidden in light. That is the gift. That is the gift of the nourishing power of the sun, which is the same energy of all the stars, of all the light. These cosmic energies emanated by plants thus nourish, sustain, and bring us to the universal light. And I love that they talk about this because one of the things that I've learned from sitting in ceremony with Sochi Ashe is the importance of being aware of having sun-grown cannabis. Because you're getting the energies of the sun, of the moon, of the stars. So I feel like he does a really beautiful job on touching upon that. And I love that she talks about, she goes into like the more physiological part related to the ANS. So if you're not familiar with the ANS, it's the automatic nervous system. So this is me geeking out on the nervous system. There's the two parts of the nervous system, right? There's the parasympathetic nervous system, and there's the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system, this is what's activated when we're in our fight or flight mode, right? So when we're feeling stressed out, our sympathetic nervous system is activated. Even if it's like we're sitting in traffic and we feel our heartbeat rushing, racing, we feel the blood go into our fingers or into our face, you know, if we get angry and we're ready to like fight or we're ready to fight. That's our sympathetic nervous system activated. Now there's the other part of it, which is our parasympathetic nervous system. And this is what allows us to rest and digest. So in order for ourselves to be calm in that state of stillness, our parasympathetic nervous system is what needs to be activated. So why this is so important is because cannabis has the ability to activate our parasympathetic system. However, it can, like we were mentioning last week, I remember Tia, you were talking about like the dualities of cannabis. It can also activate our sympathetic nervous system when it takes us into that state of like anxiety and like the heart racing. So she talks about she goes into detail about like our lungs, right? So our lungs, when we're breathing those long deep breaths into our belly, this is what allows us to calm and to relax. And it's our lungs that are able to help move all of that stale air out. And when we're doing that, that's when we're creating space for that clean oxygen to come in. So why is this important? Like, why is this important to be aware of? You know, when we're combining cannabis with our Ganja yoga practice, our Wednesday night ritual, that long, deep breathing, the movements where we're syncing the breath to the dynamic Kundalini warm-ups, it's activating that parasympathetic nervous system, which is why I would say 99% of the time when we do our check-in and people are coming in at a 3, a 4, or 5, chances are they're going to be halfway through or later on at like at 8, 9, 10. I remember that happened to me. It happens to me almost every week, where I'm checking in at a lower number, which is totally fine. We're all about honoring whatever number we're at and just observing the shift that occurs throughout the experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, constant shifts.
But you know what's funny? Yesterday on the way to Ganja Yoga, I was driving and somebody put their brakes on right in front of me. And I didn't see it because I think I was looking down at something I wasn't supposed to be looking down at. But I looked up right in time and somebody stopped, and so it made me stop. And I had that reaction, you know, how your stomach tightens up and you're right up. And then I after it passed, I realized, oh, thank God for that. Thank God for that nervous system activation, because I wouldn't, without it, I would have probably hit the car.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to see that and how it benefits me, I wasn't mad at the person anymore. I was like, this is what this thing is for. It's to protect me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so beautiful, and I carry that now. I understand it more when we're when we are having love with cannabis, how that heightens. And sometimes it's heightened on the other side, where it's like everything is and if I was able to disengage that and be like, oh, it's here to protect me, that's all it wants to do, I might have been able to move from that heavy space into that more relaxed space and helped it activate that. Be like, okay, cannabis, you're here in this spot, can we move down here to make this more smooth transition? And then that would have changed the whole night.
Yeah.
So I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Reflex.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing to remember, that our sympathetic nervous system is there to protect us. However, we live in a day and age where we are in our sympathetic nervous system way more often than we need to be in. So if we're watching a scary movie and we're just like, because we're activated, then what is that doing for our overall health? Right? Same thing, I had to stop watching news because it was just activating my stress levels. And I was like, we should be, I think it's maybe 80%, I could be making this number up, but normally the healthier way of being is in our 80% of the time in the parasympathetic nervous system and then 20% in our sympathetic, but it's actually the opposite way around, which is why people have trouble sleeping at night, right? Because we're constantly activated. So it makes it really challenging to get, and if we're not sleeping well, we're not digesting well.
Right.
If we're not digesting well, I've heard the expression, constipation is the root of all evil. If you can't poop, that sucks. Right? I'm not in a good mood. I noticed, I think it was last few days, I was like, I've been feeling a little constipated. No wonder I've been a little moody. Or no wonder I haven't been, my energy hasn't been as high as it normally is. Because I've been freaking constipated.
Yeah, our body systems are connected.
Yeah.
Exactly. And hence the whole body-mind theme of this chapter.
And yesterday's even body-mind.
Yes. Yeah, and one of the things I'm consistently reminding myself and consistently reminding everyone on our Wednesday night ritual is the importance is just witnessing, right? And so she has a sentence here on page 63 that says, tranquility can serve as a launching pad to the capacity for self-observation, which allows for the witnessing or self-reflective aspect of the mind to come forth. And it was beautiful because usually at the end of our Wednesday night ritual, I leave some space in the end for people to kind of share what came up or anything that, they just want to put out there if they want to do another check-in. And I remember someone's word was just bliss. Just a bliss. And it was so beautiful because that was just, I think that word kind of described what we were all feeling in that moment. And it was just so, to be in that state of tranquility, to be able to just like witness everyone in their bliss was beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm.
Be able to share that collectively.
Yeah, and you know, another word that I saw in here that reminded me of a cacao ceremony with Sochi. I think you were there also. She talked about self-perception, right? And she talks about, or in this chapter, she talks about enhanced sense perception, including the mental sense of oneness, occurs as soon as the marijuana takes effect. So in minutes when smoked, or an hour or more if ingested. And it's suddenly operating without resistance. And it implies a gentler outlook than is usual. And I've noticed that when teaching yoga without cannabis, I used to teach Kundalini yoga, I definitely would feel resistance around like, did I say the right thing? Is everyone having like, I wonder how everyone is, and I was in the state of like constant worry. And I've noticed that actually happens less with cannabis. In the beginning, there's also always like nerves that come up, and like I'm always concerned, like, is everyone doing okay? But I've noticed the more I build the relationship with her, the less I experience that state of worry and anxiety, and I'm just so present with the experience. So anyways, that's pretty much it. This was a short chapter. It was beautiful, and I'm excited to.
I thought it was a perfect chapter for you because we didn't choose our chapters.
I know.
We just were like, okay, 1, 2, 3. And when I listened to chapters 1 through 3 today on my drive, and when it hit chapter 3 and it was talking about body and mind and yoga, I was like, hello, the universe chose that for her. And then so it was perfect. Like these were like the first 3 chapters of this book really gets you into it and involved and wants you to look up more. Like I looked up some of these things in the chapter I was in, and I was like, I want to know more about what happened in Sikhism and why it's not allowed anymore. And I looked it up and I found some interesting stuff, and it's cool.
Do we have a spirit animal?
Oh yeah, they're right beside you.
Oh, hello! Who's here?
They're here.
So I thought to close out, we can complete with a message in the spirit animal realm. And it was great because last night, since we had 2 birthday girls present, we ended up choosing 2 cards, and it was so beautiful because Turtle Spirit appeared again, reminding us to slow down. It's like, all right, Turtle Spirit. Listen. And then Canary, which is what Rosalina chose, and it was so beautiful. Remember the message?
Sing your song.
Sing your song.
Sing your song.
I feel so fortunate because I feel like the moon dance, our weekly Wednesday night ritual, is a space where we all get to encourage ourselves to do just that, whether it's singing our own song or dancing our own dance. So
I'm gonna vote that you pick this one.
okay. So I'm going to go ahead.
She ready?
Ooh, somebody's here with us tonight.
Panther Spirit is here to guide us. And Panther's message is to reclaim your power.
Yes.
Yes. And it's a number 44.
Ooh, double number 44. Any numerologists out there, feel free to comment about what 44 means. And we'll shout you out.
I remember someone mentioned once that when 44, and I'm sure there's so many different stories around this, but 44 is a reminder that our angels are present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the message of Panther Spirit. It takes courage to face challenges. And right now, Panther Spirit is here to say that you are braver than you think. Now is the time to take a risk and step into a different aspect of your being. Speak as you have never spoken before. Act as you have always dreamed you might have the courage to act. Love fearlessly and fully, and expect to feel the adrenaline rush as you are initiated into a new, braver, bolder self. Panther Spirit says, the time for dreaming about what you want to do is giving way to that first courageous act toward reclaiming your Panther Spirit and power. Your new identity may feel strange at first, but you have what it takes, and your soul wants this. So be bold.
Woo-woo! Be bold. Wow.
And I gotta say, I feel like it definitely takes a lot of courage and boldness to do our podcast, because I definitely had a lot of fear around, I don't know how to do that. It was just so great that we have a team of really phenomenal people who are making this whole experience happen. So,
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And just to share for next Wednesday, we have our Ganja Yoga Wednesday night ritual where and this card really spoke to me, because a challenge that I've been facing is launching this e-course, Empowering Menstrual Health, and there's definitely a lot of fear that's been coming up around, is it going to be a success? Are people going to get anything out of it? And I'm realizing that it doesn't matter. What Samir keeps saying, as long as we help support just one person, then our job is done.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Do we have any other announcements? Sunday.
Yes! If you're in LA, something I am so excited to share is that this woman here, Tia Marie Brown, has her baby, which is called Sing for the Earth, and we're going to be collaborating. We're going to go out into Debs Park, where we're going to be pretty much just singing to the earth and being in community and bringing in elements of what we do at Ganja Yoga without medicine. The medicine is the nature.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and they talk about plant medicine all the time, and I strongly believe just being in nature exactly what that is, and that's why I started doing Sing for the Earth, because I'm she needs love too. We can heal ourselves and want to heal other people and help others on their journey. What about the earth? Who's helping her? And I think this was a step towards that, to let her know that we love her, that we send magical singing energies to her so that she can continue providing for us as she always has. Always has.
Yes.
Yay.
So we'll be back next week talking about the next 3 chapters in this book.
Yeah.
So those will be chapter 4, which is the basics, practical guidance for working with cannabis as a spiritual ally. And that's with Stephen Gray, the editor of this book. And then chapter 5 is Cannabis, Spirituality, and Practice, also by Stephen Gray. And the 6th one, also by Stephen Gray, Group Ceremonies with Cannabis, a field-tested, open-source, adaptable template, which totally ties into our weekly Ganja Yoga LA evenings. So thank you so much for listening. If there's anything that you'd like to share, feel free to email us, reach out to us, find us on Instagram, GanjaYoga.LA. And thanks for loving and lighting it up with us. Dance party!
Thank you for tuning in to our Ganja Yoga LA podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any feedback, please submit it to us at ganjayoga.la@gmail.com. We would love to hear your opinion, any topic suggestions, and also whether or not you enjoyed the show. So thank you for your responses. We really appreciate it, and we are so excited to keep the conversation flowing with you. So let's love and light it up.